Hello and welcome. We all know the feeling. Sitting there Monday morning at the desk, writer's block. Staring at the keyboard. It's 3 minutes past 8. Palms are starting to get a bit sweaty. There's a baby crying downstairs. Fingers are on the keyboard. You're just staring. Trying to figure out what on earth to write about today. What are you trying to say? What do you want to get over to your audience? Who are your audience? What do they care about? How salesy should I be? So I'm trying to hit a target 30 yards away with a handful of gravel. And then, what happens? You guessed it. You start thinking about all the things that you already have on your plate and you start to worry about the fact that you're not doing them. You get distracted. Thinking about accounting, thinking about that product that needs releasing, thinking about whether your website needs that update that you were talking about. Have you made the right hire? Have you hired the person you need to hire? Have you got rid of the person that you need to get rid of? All of those conversations. As a business owner and a business leader, they're pretty important, right? Certainly more important than writing your own social media. So what do you do? Well, we'll come back to it later. I'll write it down on my jobs list. We'll come back to it later. But you never do. Hello, procrastination, my old friend. We've all been there. It's true, me included. Even now, I still try to procrastinate and get rid of the idea of. I still try to procrastinate about writing my own content, even though I know the benefits of writing my own content. Of being out there consistently. So what's the answer? What if I told you in the next 20 minutes that it's possible to build enough content that you can arm an entire business across every social media channel that you have, and all that starts from just 30 minutes of your time? Am I mad? No, I've done it. I do it every single week in, week out. And the surprises in all of this are that you directly are the answer to your own problems, whether you have the time to do it or not yourself. But it can be done in 30 minutes of your time each week. Let's talk about it. So the main problem is that 82% of CEOs and business leaders admit that they don't have a scalable content strategy. It's not scalable. Even if you were to sit there and write out post after post after post. What happens when you want the rest of the business to do that? You've got to force other people to start writing on LinkedIn. And they're not experts, so you've got to provide training. You've got to pay for LinkedIn trainers, or you've got to pay for a marketing agency. It's expensive. It takes a long time. It's not scalable. So how do you do it? You can't build a house without a blueprint. So here at Javelin, we believe that brands, logos and polished videos, they're not the way forward. You know, we believe that as business owners, we think that's where we need to go with things. We'll create a shiny new website, we'll get a brilliant logo put up there, and surely people are going to buy our stuff. But they don't. What you need to do in order to sell, and this becomes even more true the more complex your product is and the more high ticket your product is you need to combine personal brand, experience and authority, and attach those three things to your business brand. Let's compare ChatGPT with your business brand. It's great at what it does, but it's got no real substance or experience. So when you write a post for a business account, you write it with a certain tone of voice, you write it from a certain angle, and you write it to achieve certain things. But it's very rare that you include any experience in there other than case studies that are being done by people. Therefore, it's just not tangible. It's not credible. You are. As the business owner, you are. And let's be honest, When you get in a room of people who are your ideal clients, you excel. I have no doubt in my mind. Most business owners do, because we're full of passion, we're full of energy, we're full of motivation, we have experience. Whether it's direct or correlated, it doesn't matter. You put us in a room full of the right people and we can absolutely sell. And we will close deals left, right and centre. That's not scalable. We can't go around doing that all the time. Our time, our day-to-day life is finite. And more to that point, the more time you spend doing as a business owner, the less time you have for strategy and guidance and direction. All the things that your business really needs from your time. So it doesn't, going out and doing those things in person, or you doing it from your own social media profile, just doesn't deliver it for you. Doesn't deliver consistent results. We prioritise things that give us quick wins today. The amount of people I get coming to my door and asking me how many leads I can drive them in the next 30 days. Why? Because they've burned through their personal network, they've opened their black book, they've opened their directors' black books and they've sold to everyone that they can sell to. Things are in the pipeline, and guess what? Things still aren't moving fast enough. So something's got to give. We've got to get some quick wins. Tell marketing to send out some marketing emails and hopefully we'll get some response back. Oh, nothing. What's next? Social media. Let's hit people on social media with some sales pictures and hopefully that'll work. Hope is not a plan, guys. See this time and time again. The best time to plant an orchard was 20 years ago. Not many of us did that. Second best time to plant an orchard? Right now. Start investing in your personal brand. Because that personal brand will pay two lots of dividends. It will pay one for your business and it will pay one for you personally, no matter where you go after the current role that you're doing. Build it before you need it. Why am I credible in this field? What gives me the reason to say that I can do this? Why did I start a business? What was the motivation factor that led me to do that? Let me tell you. For most of my professional career, after having studied software engineering, after working in a call centre, after trying to sell kitchens, I stumbled into two main roles. One was a retail leader for a supermarket, and I did every role within that business from one end to the other. And I also worked for 10 years as a volunteer police officer for Durham Constabulary. And I learned a lot about what makes people tick. I'm a curious guy. I like to know why people do what they do because it's very rarely logical. Behavioural science is really powerful. If you haven't looked into it, I would advise every single one of you out there to go away and start to understand the principles of behavioural science, because that's what makes your customers tick. And it doesn't work the way you think it does. And when you start to combine them together, it becomes really complex. There's unintended consequences. You've got to watch for all of these things happening. Anyway, I spent 15 years in retail. I became a leader. I loved developing people. And eventually my time came to an end in corporate. It was time to get out and do something different. And I found myself in a startup in Manchester. My first time working remote. My first time not in corporate. I was employee number 9. And I was tasked with selling solutions that either yet didn't exist and we were going to will them into existence when we found somebody who was willing to invest in them, or I was selling to contact centres, complex technology to very senior leaders of enterprise class businesses, C-suite, directors, heads of, none of which I had any connections with. And what I found was that we built a narrative, we built a story, and I'm sure you've done the same. We built a story about our business and our products and our services, and it was compelling and it worked, and we honed it day after day after day. Still relied on us getting in front of the right people. That was the hard part. So we went back to the drawing board, and I discounted the idea of cold calling, cold emails, cold pitching on LinkedIn. They were all things I tried and I wasn't very successful at. I had no sales background, I had no marketing background. There was nobody in the business who I could ask to do those things. or to strategize with me, and I had to learn everything myself. We had some success. And I wouldn't say any of those things are things that you shouldn't do. Absolutely, they're part of the market mix, part of the sales mix. Rev ops, definitely do them. But they're not what drives results with the senior leadership teams, with complex products. What worked for us? I'll tell you. We created 2 podcasts. One was a personal one for our CEO that I helped facilitate, and another was me on a Thursday doing live interviews of celebrities in the customer service field, contact centres and customer experience. We leveraged their connections, we leveraged their credibility, we leveraged their thoughts and gauged them. And what we found was that worked really well. It was a good conversation starter, opened some doors for us. Brilliant. But we were still missing the vast majority of our ideal audience that were out there on LinkedIn. And people say this to me, people say, Paul, my audience aren't on LinkedIn. For a very few niche B2B businesses, that might be true. Certainly for B2C, it's quite possible. But for the vast majority of B2B people, absolutely wrong. They just don't engage with your content. You don't see them because they don't want you to see them, because they don't want pitch slapping into a non-existence. And that's what happens all the time. The moment they show interest in one little thing, they get spammed to death. And they won't leave them alone. And people can be quite aggressive. I've had it. So, how do we access the rest of our audience that don't see our podcast and our webinar? Well, what I came upon was repurposing the content. Nobody wanted to take 30 minutes of their time to watch a podcast that they might not enjoy. Well, people are much more likely to take 30 seconds to view a clip from that podcast that talked about a specific topic. And what do you know? By having a 30-second clip that I can post on social media, I've also solved the problem of what do I talk about today, because it's already there. All I had to do was have good conversations with people about topics that were current and relevant and useful, and I could use that to drive our whole content strategy forward for all of the business. Not only that, but I posted on behalf of 3 or 4 other senior leaders. So we were really starting to get traction with all of this. But still taking a long time to produce that content until I figured out the right technology and the right processes and combined it with my own technological abilities to create an efficient workflow. And we got it to the point where we could do that in 5 to 10 hours a week, leaving the rest of the week free for all of the regular sales activities. It's a startup. That's far from my only job. What were the results? I'll tell you. In 18 months, I went from having 100 connections on LinkedIn to about 16,000. Let that sink in for a moment. Now, this is a time when you could do things very differently on LinkedIn. We absolutely leveraged everything we could do. But still, that's a huge jump. What's more important is that I managed to put over 200 real qualified opportunities into the funnel for the business. The average ARR for all of that across the whole 200 opportunities would have converted to about 25 million. ARR every single year. With no experience, no credibility and no history in that industry. And I know I can replicate that in any industry I was to go into. So that's what I decided to do. So I set my own business up to do that for other people. And that's why I'm creating this webinar today, because I want to share with you the secrets of that. How does it work? Why does short form content work with people? It's about building relationships first. More than anything else, it's relationships. That's what we thrive on. Mankind, humankind, people, have been communicating by stories for millennia. It's how we've always told our stories. It's how we've always passed knowledge, how we've passed experience. And the very best storytellers were our leaders. You could argue that's still true today, right? But seriously, the tried leaders were the ones who could tell the most compelling stories, the ones that had the best experiences. They had been into the thick of combat, they'd lived to tell the story, and they shared it around the campfire. It's no different today. It's That's exactly what we do. The best leaders do that. They do it internally with their teams, they do it externally with their customers, and they do it externally with their intended audience. Getting that story out there is tough. That's why Nike provides training for their leadership team in storytelling. Tell creative stories. How do you do it? What makes a good story, and how do you convey that in a way that creates emotional attachment? Because guess what? When people hear your stories, they start to know you. They might start to like you, and they definitely will eventually start to trust you if what you say resonates. Here's a stat that you might not know, but 99% of LinkedIn members don't post anything at all. So by posting, just posting, whether it's even if it's a bad post, by posting, you trump 99% of all people on LinkedIn to get to your ideal audience. And turning long form video of 30 minutes, 45 minutes, your webinars are a prime example. How many people drop off after 15 or 20 minutes? Why? Because you've probably bored them to death, but also because they've got other commitments. People don't have half an hour, 45 minutes anymore. This is a busy life. We're all multitasking all the time. We've got all the meetings. We've got, especially with remote life, everything's just so crammed in. So what? So you turn it into short 30-second to 90-second clips. Very short form content, each with its own micro topic. It's micro learning. That people will take a risk on. Put it in the feed. People will take a risk on that 30 seconds. And if what you say resonates, they'll come back for more. Maybe not intentionally at first. You might have to pop in their feed 4 or 5 times for them to see what you've done, for it to resonate and to think, actually, I'm going to join this person on their journey. So 30 to 90 second reels. But I'm talking about a scalable business. So we need more than just 5 or 10 clips from a 30-minute webinar. That's not going to get an entire business to a month. So the only person that gets bored of your content, by the way, is you. Your audience don't get bored of it. As long as it was good the first time, it'll be good every other time after that. So you create those content clips. Now you put them in a wrapper. You put an overlay around them. Matches your brand guidelines. We do it in 2 contrasting colours. So now you've got your original content, you've got 20, 25 short clips, and you've got those short clips in 2 different colour schemes. Here's where it starts to get tricky. You don't just do the video, create audiograms as well. Audiograms, if you don't know what they are, karaoke style text across the middle, might have a waveform on there that resonates when your voice speaks, and probably a small avatar of yourself, a small image of yourself on the screen, so people can still attach your face, your personality with what's being said. Very important. So we do that. So that doubles the amount of content you've just created, because everything you've created so far in 2 different colour schemes, you can now have it as an audiogram as well. And people, you know what, you could post the same clip 2 separate days in 2 separate formats. Nobody would even realise what you've done. Very few people would realise what you've done. Don't do that, but you could. Now you output that in 3 different formats. Why? 3 different formats for all the different social media platforms that you could be investigating and trialing. Landscape, think Facebook, LinkedIn. Square, also Facebook, but also Instagram, Twitter. And portrait, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram. The list goes on. But Paul, I don't want to be on TikTok. It's fine, don't be on TikTok. But isn't it worth trialing? And if you already have the content, doesn't that make it easier? Because the reason you don't trial it at the moment is because 1, you don't think it works, and 2, you haven't got any content for it. But what if you did have the content? Wouldn't that make it very easy to trial? And you'd be surprised at how quick some of the social media platforms like TikTok are growing with their B2B community. Absolutely anybody who's missing out on things like TikTok and Instagram, who think their audience or their audience's children aren't on TikTok, then you're wrong. They are there. Whether you drive results from that or not, I can't say it. That is down to your business, your product, your service. It's definitely out there. It's an opportunity. What's more, you can also create static quotes images from that transcript, from that long form content that you've just created. The punchy bits that you get to, build it before you need it. That's definitely going to be in there for me. In a couple of different formats. So you've got all of that. You've now got over 200 digital assets from one piece of content, all talking about the same topics and themes. Great for your content strategy. What's more, you can now use ChatGPT to help you create alternative versions of any posts that you do create yourself, to help create a base layer for your newsletter, to create a base layer for your blog, and then you put a human over the top. All of a sudden your production time's halved, and ChatGPT will spot all the important topics and give them really cool headings that you would never even spot. It's brilliant for those things. Just don't trust it to do the whole article on its own, because that's not what it's for. And it all features you, the time poor but incredibly experienced and passionate business leader. All of a sudden, you are now scalable. You're the best person to sell your business. You need more you. And that's what short form content does. It gives your entire business a plethora, a library of content that's got you in it, or other senior leaders from the business. It doesn't have to be just you, it could be other senior leaders. And what that short form content does is it educates your audience that you can be, you can be as a business, and it educates your audience. You can be first to market. That's hard to do. You can be best in your market. Requires deep pockets. We all know that. The likes of Coca-Cola and Nike, Apple, Google. But the third option is what resonates with everybody. So you can be different. And it doesn't mean you need to put big clown shoes on. Right? Different is just helping people to understand the difference between you and the competition. What makes you stand apart? Why did you start your business? You believed in it enough that you wanted to do something, and there is something unique about that. And if you can convey that in a story, you've won. What are you about? What are you not about? And why are you an expert? Are all very powerful elements of that. Get rid of the people who are tie kickers, who want to know more information but can't find it on your website. Now they don't need to have a meeting because you're all over the LinkedIn, you're all over the internet. People can understand what you're about and what you're not. And they know what you do and what you don't do. They know what your products and services are, what you believe in, and why you believe it. All of those things are really, really important. And in time, your ideal audience will find your content because they don't follow you right now. Otherwise, you'd have sales. They will follow your content over time. They will find you bit by bit by bit, and they will come in. And you won't see them engage, you won't see them comment, you'll very rarely see them like. But they'll be there, and they'll be watching. And you, eventually, will be known to them, liked by them, and eventually trusted by them to be an expert at the thing that they're going to feel at some point, which you already solved the problem for. So when that buy-in window opens and they realise they have the problem, probably because of watching your content and understanding a bit more about the pain they're about to go through, you're top of mind. Boom. The results are simple. When the time is right, your audience will come inbound to you. It's not a quick process. It's about educating people, retraining their brain to think of you first. It can take 18 months. I've seen results in 3 to 6 months. How much results you get depends largely on you, the quality of your content you put out, how consistent you are, as well as the usual things such as your product market fit. Measure the attribution. When you do start to do this, measure the attribution properly. Don't give drop-down lists of how did you hear about us. Ask them, when did you first hear about us? And give them a text box. Let them write what they want. Very powerful. Yes, it requires some manual understanding and analysis. The results will drive your business forward. I guarantee it. Because if you ask someone, they're probably going to say, oh yeah, I landed on your website. What they're not going to tell you at that point is, well, I watched your podcast 6 months ago and I've seen 15 pieces of content on LinkedIn since then. And when I had a problem, I came to your website. And that's the actual path. And people say to me, Paul, what ROI did that podcast bring for you? Directly attributable? If you don't measure attribution, none. How can you hope to do that? And even then, it's still just a finger in the air gesture. The real power is still happening. You've just got to believe in it, have faith in the process and stick with it. Look at me at Javelin. Currently, no website, no SEO, no pay-per-click, just content. Do it through all the social media channels. I am on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Threads, kinda, YouTube, definitely on there. And in 8 months of trading, at month 3, I had to buy a CRM because I couldn't keep track of all the leads that I was generating. Granted, my audience is a much wider addressable audience, so my results will not be your results. But the point is, I went from an AI startup selling complex technology, now I'm selling market and content services. It still works, it still applies. Next month, I will break 10k MRR in 8 months from a standing start with no real network in what I'm trying to do. I've had to rebuild my network again. Imagine the impact on your cold outreach as well. No more poor sales messages trying to encourage people to buy your products and services. No, now all you need to do is tell them to come and watch your content. Oh, do you know what? Our content might just help you, might just solve your problems. Come and have a look at it. Follow us. Is that worth trialing? I think it is. It feels much more natural to me. I get a lot less negative responses to those messages and actually build a following far, far quicker of the right people, the right time, the right eyeballs on your right content leads to sales. So at the beginning of this story, we were sitting at the desk with writer's block. It was 8 or 3 a.m. We had sweaty palms. The baby was crying downstairs. Coffee was going cold. Fingers are on the keyboard and we were staring at the keyboard. And now we're sitting there nice and relaxed. We've been to our library inside the computer. We've picked out today's content video. We've uploaded it to LinkedIn and we're listening to it. We're just thinking, how can I add some context with my own experience and ideas and engage my audience in a way that adds value to them? We started this journey with a target and a handful of gravel. Do you remember me saying that? You've now finished it with an athletic body, a javelin in your hands, and the ability to throw it faster, harder, and better than your competition. If you want to learn how to do all these things, come follow me on LinkedIn. I share it all. Because if you can do it yourself, you should be doing it yourself. You're not my customer. And if you can't, you want to do it yourself, but you can't, or you don't want to do it yourself at all, and you just want somebody to do it for you, well, then I'm happy to chat. Any of you who are watching this, if this resonates with you, I would love to hear your thoughts, what you've trialed before and what you plan to do as a result. And if you do go away and create some content on the back of this webinar, please drop me a DM, send me a link to your post, and I will engage with it because I would love to help people out. That's what I do. I help people. That is my why. It's what I get out of bed for. It's what helps me sleep at night. It's not making money. It's not paying for the bills. It's not driving a nice car or having a nice phone. It is helping people. And the more help I can be to people, the better. Thanks for watching. I'm Paul Banks, Managing Director here at Javelin Content Management. I hope you've enjoyed the show. Please do reach out. Paul@javelincontent.com. Have a good day.